Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with Patrick Chun. I'm so very excited. He's the co-founder of World Civility Index, and they test indexes, global soft skill standards. And we'll let him tell us about his background and a little bit about himself. How are you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here.
So nice to have you.
Thank you.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Patrick Chun, and I'm one of the co-founders of IITTI World Civility Index. And I came from the ranks of an engineer, computer programmer, and then later on, entrepreneur, started a company, sold it, and the group said, well, what is going to be our next big thing? And very soon we stumble upon this, the World Civility Index, because one of our previous customer, a multinational, and they said, well, Patrick, why don't you help us train all our employees on being international? And we go, what is international? And so they want something about entrepreneurship, taking initiative, being able to navigate in a multicultural kind of business environment around the world and so on. So we said, and one of their brilliant engineers come up and said, Patrick-san, what is the standard you're going to use for training all the satellite offices around the world at the same time? So it would be more than one trainer. And so we said, what do you mean standard? So I ran to ISO and thought, there would be a standard on this kind of things, but it turns out there wasn't. So the group has this eureka moment, the light bulb go off and said, oh, this is stuff. If this company has this multinational has this kind of problem, all the other multinational companies and all the companies that do business around the world would have the same problem. And that is, how do you have the headquarter people going overseas and, as an expat, talking to local people and having this cultural mesh so that they can get together and get something done. And it turns out to be a fairly hard problem. And the losses are lost productivity. The expats look down on the local people a lot of times. Local people don't like the expat, so those are cultural issues and cultural clashes. How do you train people like that? Now there are companies who do something like this, but the problem is it comes down to a problem of measurement. How do you actually train your whole rank and file so that they all understand something like that? And how do you prove it? How do they prove it? So that's the $1 million question, is how do you prove certain people, your new hire, your manager, have this kind of effort into understanding intercultural competence, for example. And so it comes down to what we call soft skills. So it comes down to measurement of soft skills. And that's why the World Civility Index came about. It allowed university students, young people to earn points so they can show it on their cell phone and show it to the bragging rights, to show it to their peers, to human resource managers, so on and so forth, for employment purposes. So the whole thing started about 15 years ago, and now there are something like 200,000 users around the world on something like this. And we have been very fortunate to be officially recognized by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, DISA, Sustainable Development, or as they call it, SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're aligning with something like this and helping companies, insurance companies, financial companies, and banks and so on, in what they call the ESG, the environmental, social, and governance, the latest iteration of what they call corporate social responsibility. And so they need to show environmental stewardship, social, for example, human capital development, that's what we help, and governance, ethics, and so on. So that is what I have been doing for the last 15 years in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for that. That's great. So interesting and so much fun. Can you tell us a little bit more? I know you told me the Global Civility Index was a non-profit organization. Can you tell us a little bit about its values and mission, please?
Yeah, we have been struggling for that for quite a while. We understand that, the World Civility Index can be used in a corporate application, like I mentioned before, like people finding jobs and human resource everywhere can actually get something, understanding the students and the job applicants that they have put in effort into their own inner development, their soft skill training, and so on. But it turns out that there are a lot more that can be used for this World Civility Index. Um, I told you about the United Nations, that we were very fortunate, but there are two other ones. One of them is called the Inner Development Goals (IDG). This organization that has been very generous, and they recently wrote a book chapter on the World Civility Index. They're a huge organization, and the Switzerland chapter wrote a book chapter on something like this from the IDG. And IDG, it's started by Harvard, Stockholm, and London universities, and a few other major players. And they are really gearing for answering the questions of SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. I think there are 16 or 17 goals: poverty, water, education, so on and so forth. And very recently, about 2 years ago, United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres came out and announced the UN SDGs, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, are something like 80% behind schedule. 80% behind schedule. So I think they have something like a 15-year ambition from 2015 to 2030, and they want to accomplish certain goals by 2030. And halfway, about 2023, he made that announcement saying that the goals are 80% behind schedule. And so they urge citizens around the world, companies and so on, to think of ways of improving that. Why is it so slow? What happened? What do we need to do? So the Harvard group, the Harvard, Stockholm, and London group, the IDG I talked about, they are trying to answer part of that. They try to say the SDGs are not being met. The United Nations SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are not being met. There's a reason. And so they came up with, they summoned a lot of experts, tens of thousands of them around the world, to hammer out this IDG, the Inner Development Goals. It talks about that the argument is, unless people can solve what is inside, the inner development, there's no way, no space in their head to think about the bigger things like climate and all that. You need to have people think about humanity first. They need to think about empathy. They need to think about caring for one another. They need to think about intercultural issues. Whether you like it or not, there are different cultures. And many parts of the world now are seeing that problem. So unless people can think about something like this, unless people feel safe and respected at work and all the places in their community, they cannot have this space to think about the bigger things. So they would not vote for the right politicians to solve climate issue. They think about their own welfare, justifiably so. So those are the arguments that Harvard came about with the IDG group. IDG, by the way, I really encourage everybody to join. They have they have grown very quickly. I think in a few years, they have grown to something like 20, 30,000 members, if I'm not mistaken, in 20 different countries, nonprofit, just like us at IITTI. Why am I telling you this story about IDG? It very well that dawned on us at our organization that we were in parallel universe. They have been doing that. And we have been talking about it in a different way. We talk about we need to measure it. Without measurement, there's no improvement. Peter Drucker. So those are kind of things that are in the parallel universe. And we joined them. We said we're all for it. This is our cup of tea. And sure enough, like I said, there are many chapters. The chapter in Switzerland, they say, well, why don't we write a book about something like this? Some of the experts, we can all compile different chapters about what people are doing around the world. And very soon, of course, we apply and they accept it. And so they publish a book in Switzerland earlier this year. And so we're all very excited. And so we're talking about something very, very, very small, but very crucial to humanity. So it's not just about helping companies finding good employees and so on in the recruitment, human resource world. This is the part that is about ESG, about the environment, social governance, and which is respond to the bigger things called the UN SDG, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so the corporate now, for example, we're very, very, very busy because there are a lot of companies are scrambling to say, well, what do we need to do? What can we do to have a good ESG report? Many stock market now, many stock exchange are recently requiring all their companies who are listed to have this kind of ESG report, this kind of corporate social responsibility report. So now in the old days, it's like this. You need to do well. You need to make money. So you need to have a good financial report, a good balance sheet of sorts, in the black, hopefully. And so you need to do well. But now with the corporate social responsibility, you also need to do good. You also need to have a good ESG report, because what happens is the ESG report is being looked at by your investors, by your stockholders, and so on. So unless you can show that you are really doing good as well as doing well, you're only 50%. You need to do good. So the ESG report is becoming very important, and some stock exchange, or I think in the coming year, 2026, they require all their companies to do something like this. One example is in the Shenzhen Stock Exchange. Shenzhen, China, is where most of the iPhone are built. And all the Fortune 500 companies, they have a local headquarters there and so on. It's the Silicon Valley of China. So those are the issues. And also around the world, in many places, they are also having this issue where companies are saying, yeah, there are a lot of standards around the world for writing ESG, this corporate social responsibility reports and so on, but nothing really like the World Civility Index. Because the World Civility Index is an ongoing measurement of effort, not just a snapshot, of, oh, well, this is your personality and so on. So I talk about the ESG, the environment. There are a lot of people doing it. The social part is always I need to watch out for waving my hands too much.
Okay.
The social part is always the second citizen, the poor cousin. Second class citizen. How do you measure social improvement? Like you can say, oh well, Nike, they go out and build an orphanage, but then there are critics. The biggest stumbling block for this ESG phenomenon is there are critics saying that, well, you're just BSing, you're just greenwashing. That's a new term. So a lot of companies are now avoiding greenwashing. So even if they're doing good, they are they're fairly reluctant to say they're doing good because there's no proof, right? So our little group here in Canada, we said, we can help. We can have this World Civility Index. All your employees learn something about human interactions, learn something about empathy, about what's happening around the world in terms of environmental protections and so on. All of that can be captured, and the effort is what is important. So we measure the effort, and they can build day by day, point by point, and employee by employee, and we can give the company an average score of World Civility Index. And so a company average World Civility Index is something they can put in their ESG report. And this is important because it's not a number that they cook up themselves, but it's actually, we give them that number. We're impartial, we are independent, and so it holds a lot more credibility. So in that, they can have a better looking, more credible ESG report in that regard. So that's number two. And then there are other things that are even bigger. So I talk about two things. The recruitment, the human resource, and so on. That's the very first one. And ESG and corporate social responsibility is the second one. There are two more that I can talk to, but I'll let you ask some questions first before I go
No,
on.
I completely love it. I think it's very holistic, and I think it brings awareness um, to the consciousness of people. So, do you mind telling us about those two other things, Patrick?
Yeah, there's a beyond the Harvard IDG group that we wrote a book chapter on. There's another group called the Presencing Institute. Presencing Institute again is a nonprofit organization. It's started by a fellow by the name of Alder Sharman or Professor Alder Sharman from MIT and Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Presencing Institute. They are talking about very similar things. They talk about sensing. They talk about listening. They talk about social soil, means your environment, and so on. You have to cultivate the social soil, just like in a garden, so that you provide the environment so that your plants, your food can blossom in that environment. And the argument is from Professor Otto Scharman, it's the social soil has been consistently been depleted over the decades, if not the centuries. And we as citizens of the world, we need to think of ways of re-energizing it to make social soil positive so that plants can grow. And so there's the concept of sensing. You have to sense what the world is right now and how do you solve major world problems. And so they, in 2023, end of 2023, we applied to be part of that group, and we're very lucky. I think every year they invite something like 200 different organizations, companies, NGOs, and so on to join this Presencing Institute. And so that we are all collaborating to try to solve world problems. And it's a fascinating group. We have been there, of course, many times, and rub shoulders with many of the thinkers and movers and shakers and so on. And with all the collaboration, it came to the point where people are saying that we, the IITTI World Civility Index group, should really, get our acts into the next stage, because there are issues of AI. Artificial intelligence is taking over the world as we speak. People are being laid off en masse, and those jobs, a lot of experts think, are not coming back, including a lot of the collaboration people with this MIT group there. And so how do we solve that? And one of our members from IITTI, we raised our hands again, and she said, the way to do that is you can give a UBI, the universal basic income, to all the citizens, but you need to also put in one more element, and that is an incentive, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, so that people are not just getting money blindly. Because I think they have done an experiment in the 1960s where they have put rats into a room or something, and feed them all the food, the water, they can have everything they want, no disease and so on. It turns out it didn't work very well. The rats start behaving in isolation. They just groom themselves, no mating, no interactions, and the colony dies off. Experiment after experiment after experiment in the 1960s. And so is this a canary in the coal mine? Is that something for humanity to really think about? And a lot of these people, our collaboration teams here at Presencing Institute, believe that we are going down the exact same path. In fact, they're already seeing many of the symptoms in our society. There are people, we just watched a documentary about people in Japan, some young people just live in their own house. And a 40-year-old bachelor, never been married, no girlfriend, never had sex before, and no interaction. They just stay in their own house for years. And so those situations may be too extreme, but the thing is, it's not about 10,000. It's about the one. What if there is one chance out of 10,000 that this could be true? Is humanity willing to take that risk if we are not paying attention? Just just give everybody some money, UBI, the universal basic income. Even though we can probably tax the OpenAI, the ChatGPT, and Microsoft of the world, and there will be enough money so that the money circle is still turning. It's not about the money circle not being able to turn. It's about how do you turn that money circle when people are no longer feeling the meaning of life. That is the trillion-dollar question. And so at IITTI, we said we suggest that on top of the basic income, the universal basic income, anything else people want to make, they need to earn points on the World Civility Index. The reason being is that is something that allows them to hone their skills on interactions, on soft skills, on caring for one another, on understanding the world around them. It's the new kind of education so that they would see how they can contribute to civilization. Not just caring and grooming themselves, but how do they contribute? So you asked me, it's a long roundabout to answer your questions. How do we see ourselves? We see ourselves now with the help of the MIT group. We see ourselves as how do we help young people or not so young to have a sense of purpose and contributing to civilization. Those are the key words. How can we help humanity to feel that each one of us can contribute to civilization? We're all pushing the same wheel. We're all within the same big wheel, a good wheel. We're all a cog of it, and we are important cogs. So we are all in it together. So how do we have this sense of togetherness, that we have a sense of purpose, that we're helping each other? The question is, what happens when AI takes over all the jobs? And what do we do with 8 billion people? What do we do with 8 billion friends around the world? If we look at it like that, the answer is we serve one another. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter whether you're really poor in the current social economical status point of view or really rich. We still have to have a purpose of serving one another. And there are many ways of doing that. This group here with collaboration, they have already defined new careers that doesn't exist now. That would be very, very effective in a post-AI world, in a post-labor world. those are the real careers. One of them, I'll tell you the two names. One of them is called praxis. Praxis is somebody who's like a cross between a social worker and a psychologist and a historian. And so the idea really is to have praxis, millions of them around the world. And this is a new kind of career, same level as an engineer or doctor or lawyer of today's economic world. And a praxis will go about in the neighborhood and say, well, why don't we have a potluck? Why don't we have a tea party? Why don't we just sit together and chat once every 2 weeks or something, and especially identify those hermits, those bachelors who never interact and so on. Help them, and so that you can pull them out of the misery. Introduce them to hobbies. Praxis are there to start hobbies, start hobby groups, organize your local neighbors, help them in interacting, talking to the government, be the ombudsman, be the ombudsperson to talk to government, so that if there's any gripes and so on, have them listen to it. So those are the new career called praxis, and they would be important for mending social fabric. Those are the key ideas in that. Another one is called Senatrex. Senatrex is I think Latin. It's meaning healer. So it's almost like a doctor. But the problem is, this is another thing. The MIT group we co-created. Below, underneath the umbrella of the World Civility Index, MIT collaboration team suggests that, well, why don't we also create something called the Personal Health Index? It's about your own health. I said, well, what does it have to do with civility and civilization? Well, the argument is, unless you feel well, you're not going to contribute much to civilization. Those are the ideas. So underneath the umbrella of the World Civility Index, now there's a sub-index called the Personal Health Index. And the idea is people need to pay attention to what constitutes good health. How can you have good health? A lot of people don't know about it. So it's a measurement of effort people put into their own health. Doesn't matter you're 300 pounds or overweight or you're underweight or whatever. It's your effort that you put into it that is important. So right now, for example, in India, the statistics is something like there are something like 30% overweight people, obese. In the United States, numbers are fairly similar. Here in Canada, I think we're just a little bit better, but not that much better. And so, how do we help governments in saving money in Medicare, in medical expenses? And the personal health index is the way. The more people earn points, maybe they can get a discount when they go to Loblaws or go to Costco or something like that. Giving people incentive to do better so that we can all save money and they feel better so they can contribute to civilization. So that comes back to the World Civility Index. So all these things are interrelated, intertwined, and with all the collaboration team, they come up with all the ideas, and it's our group here to really execute all that. So those are the exciting things. So we talk about three things: the human resource, the recruitment. That's the first thing. Second thing is the ESG, the corporate social responsibility. Now the third thing is UBI, the universal basic income. That's Sam Altman and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. They're all talking about it. And in fact, I think Sam Altman already did some experiments in California where they give out money. And here in Canada, we have been doing that, different locations with fairly good results. So people feel less stress when they don't have to worry about poverty, abject poverty, and so on. But the future problem would be finding meanings, finding a sense of purpose in that regard.
I totally love it. I think it's amazing. There's so many uses of the global or the World Civility Index, rather. It's amazing. So One more question. So where do you see ITTI going from here with the World Civility Index? It sounds like you've got your finger in absolutely everything. Yeah, seriously. And I mean, meaning is so important. I mean, it's the reason why we're here and why we've been created, right? So it's pretty deep. Where do you see yourself in 6 months to a year from now?
Well, we really want to like they say, cross the river by feeling all the stones and pebbles in the waterbed instead of jumping in and don't know where we're going. So each step right now we have a lot of partnering training companies and so on. They do the training and then they get accredited. So banks and, like I said, insurance companies, financial institutes, so on, can have the employees earning the World Civility Index. So and they can use it for recruitment in that regard. So that's already like the first step being used. And now there are companies who ask us to help with their ESG reporting. So we are nonprofits. So we don't do the actual consultation work and so on. We're just a standard. We're fairly static, if you think about it. So we work with ESG companies, consulting companies. They help companies in writing ESG reports and so on. So those are the things where we can help them with having a standard that they can use because we're independent, we're impartial,
Yeah.
and so that can do it. And regarding the UBIs and so on, with the help of the IDG from the Harvard group and also the Presencing Institute from the MIT group, there are many friends of IITTI collaboration teams that we work with. They help us in having dialogues with governments. So governments, local governments, national governments can think about having policies where they can have UBIs
Hmm.
and also using the World Civility Index as an incentive on top of the basic UBIs
Yeah,
in that regard. So
that would
in
be.
right now there are a lot of exciting things happening. One of them is last this May 2025 we set up we set up a humanity hub, a humanity center, the first one in Hong Kong. And the reason being is we are saying that we really need to have, well, of course, our headquarters is in Vancouver, Canada, but we set up a hub in Hong Kong, Humanity Hub in Hong Kong, so that there could be localized content, localized lessons that people can read and watch and so on. So about Eastern culture, with my limited knowledge of Eastern culture, um, and the recommendation from like the Harvard inner development groups and so on, say, well, there are a lot that can be contributed. The Harvard group, the MIT group are really the global north. We're the global north, and in Switzerland and so on, they're the global north. So we know what we're talking about. We know our values. But what about the global south and also the far east culture and
Hmm.
so on? Eastern culture, Taoism, and so on, have many years of these kind of thinking. We should introduce that to the World Civility Index so that when people do the micro lessons, they not only get the Western view like Peter Drucker's and so on, but also the Confucian's philosophy and all that, so that people can really be well-rounded. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
who you are around the world, can all see and get an appreciation, at least of the awareness of something like that. So we got set it up. There are a lot of interest from the Hong Kong group. Hong Kong, by the way, is changing their pace. It has been a financial hub. It still is, but they want to take the next level up to be what can we do to make our society even more high quality. So we said, well, you can use something like a humanity hub, and this is not without reason. Singapore, Singapore in 1979, they started a project called the National Courtesy Campaign. National Courtesy Campaign, and that is about people lining up at the bus, respecting your elders, letting them sit down on the bus, and being polite and all that. National Courtesy Campaign, 1979. They still have something going on, and you talk about finding proof in the benefit of being nice. That's the proof. Singapore has one of the highest GDP in the world, and they have no natural resources, no land, nothing. So how did they start from being abject poverty to one of the highest GDP? So those are the things. The idea is Singapore in 1979 with Lee Kuan Yew was saying that yes, we can do the technology, we can do the finance, we can do all that, but unless our citizens feel safe and respected, it will never be a Singapore. So Singaporeans don't think about themselves as Chinese Singaporean or Indo Singaporean, so on. They just say we are Singaporean. That is the power of soft skills, is that we're all in it together. Let's not divide ourselves by artificial line in the sand based on skin color or ethnicity or so on. We're all in it together. We're Singapore. I think that's what we can do, especially from Canada, is that we are probably one of the few Western power, if you may, that really have diversity, multiculturalism as part of our DNA since Pierre Trudeau, the first Trudeau that we have in the 1970s. He was the one who introduced multiculturalism in a big way, saying, we let people come here and have different cultures, and we'll take the best, and that becomes Canada in time. And so I think those are the things where we can help, especially now we have the IITTI World Civility Index, also from Canada. Nordic countries and so on, they see that, you see that in the news, where they think they can be very generous and so on, but up to a point, they realize there are issues. And so we in Canada, I'm not saying it's perfect, but we do have the diversity. Diversity is a dirty word in many parts of the U.S. and even their leaders don't believe in something like this. So those are issues we need to tackle with. And so I think in Canada we can be the leader in this area, and that's why I think Hong Kong, with the blessing of the Hong Kong government and so on, and many organizations, universities and so on, to what we are trying to set up in Hong Kong. And I think that's is a good sign that we can do something like this. So in the next 6 months, continue with Hong Kong. There's another city, another location we want to start a second humanity hub, but that is to be determined.
Okay, I see. Well, wow. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for sharing all these insights about the World Civility Index. I truly appreciate you being here and honor your presence. And I just want to let our listeners know that if they want to get a hold of Patrick to talk to him about the World Civility Index, he's easiest to reach by LinkedIn. And in closing, Patrick, do you have something to say to our listeners?
Well, I think if some of your listeners are from insurance company, for example, they should really think about supporting something like this. if their customers are having better well-being, whether it's personal health or their own civility and sense of meaning, it helps them to have better lives, and it's better for your industry. Less claims in that regard. So I think that helps in the financial market as well. When you see society having better human capital, that's what we're in. We're human capital development.
Yeah.
The work ethics will be better. Productivity will go up, and stock market goes up for good reasons in that regard. So we're here. There are quite a few of us now, and we can help in some meaningful ways.
Thank you so much for adding that because most of the listeners are from the financial industry and especially the insurance industry. So that's great to know. Thank you so much, Patrick, and I wish you a very great day.
Okay, you too, Carolyn.